Okay, so we're going to start. We're in chapter 20, and we've been learning about the very righteous king. His name was Hezekiah, and he served Hashem tremendously. He encouraged people studying Torah. He got rid of all the idols, even the altars that were used, that none of the other kings seemed to be able to get rid of. Hezekiah was able to rid the city, rid the country of, and he was tremendously righteous. At the same time, the fact is that he did something wrong, and Yeshaya tells him, Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, tells him off, and he says, "You're going to die." We're going to read it inside, and then we'll discuss it. We're in chapter 20, verse 1. In those days, Chizkiah became deathly ill, and Isaiah, the son of Amoz, the prophet, came to him and said to him, sorry about that. The prophet Isaiah came to him and said to him, "Thus said Hashem, instruct your household, you shall die, and you shall not live." And so the prophet is obviously rebuking Hezekiah. But what did Hezekiah do wrong? So verse 2 says, Hezekiah then turned his face to the wall, prayed to Hashem, saying, "Please, Hashem, remember now that I've walked before you faithfully and wholeheartedly, and I have done what is good in your eyes." And Hezekiah wept in an intense weeping. It was when Isaiah had not yet left the middle courtyard. The word of Hashem came to him, saying, "Go back and tell Hezekiah, the ruler of my people, thus said Hashem, the God of your forefather David, I have heard your prayer and I have seen your tears. Behold, I am healing you. On the third day you will go up to the temple of Hashem. I will add 15 years to your life." Second. "I will add 15 years to your life, and I will rescue you in this city from the grip of the king of Assyria, Ashur. I will protect this city for my sake and for the sake of my servant David."
Rabbi, why does it say you will die and you will not live?
I'm gonna explain that soon in a moment. Then Isaiah said, "Take a cake of figs." They took it and placed it on Hezekiah's boil, and it was healed. Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "What sign can you show me that Hashem will heal me?" So you're telling me it's I'm going to be healed, and that I will go up on the third day to the temple of Hashem. Give me a sign. And so Isaiah said, "This is a sign from Hashem that Hashem will do for the deed of which he spoke, that shall the shade move 10 degrees ahead on the clock, or shall it go back 10 degrees? That's some type of a sundial, a sun clock." And Hezekiah said, "It's easier for the shade to be extended by 10 degrees. No, rather let the shade turn backward 10 degrees. And Isaiah the prophet called out to Hashem, and he turned the shade backward by 10 degrees from the level where it had descended on the sun clock of Achaz." So this is the first part of the chapter. And again, we're dealing with Chizkiah here, who did some type of a sin, and he's getting deathly ill. And Isaiah tells him that he's going to die. And as David just asked me, it mentions double. You shall die and you shall not live. And there's obviously a reason for that. And the reason for that is what the prophet said: not only are you going to die in this world, but you're not going to merit the world to come. So it sounds like a very serious sin. The question is, what sin is it? So the simple understanding based on the Gemara is that Hezekiah had a vision. And his vision was that he was going to have a very evil son. And it turned out that it was correct. he did actually have a very evil son. We'll soon learn about him. His name was Menashe. And the thought of bringing someone so evil into this world caused Hezekiah to say, well, I don't want to do that. I'm trying to bring goodness, holiness, righteousness to the world. And I'm giving my life up for that. I'm putting all my effort and energy into bringing goodness into the world. And if I have an evil son, who brings evil into the world, cruelty and so on, this is exactly the opposite of what my whole mission statement is. So Hezekiah decided he's not going to get married because he sees this in his future, and he says, that would be against my ethics. And so he decides he's not going to get married. Now, sounds like a logical type of argument, and that's why he did it. That's why he chose that. That's why he decided that. But Isaiah comes to him and says, well, guess what? You're wrong, because you have no right mixing into Hashem's hidden matters. Bahade kivshe derachmana lamala. What are you doing mixing into Hashem's stuff? So Hashem is planning on you having a son. Now, there is no such thing as having an evil son. But what it means is that he's going to have tendencies. No one is really born evil, but they have tendencies towards evil. And if they're, and if they don't control themselves, they will become evil. And if the parents don't work on them, and if their teachers don't work on them, and their friends and so on, and they don't try to give good influence, it's going to be very hard for that child to. He has free choice. He has the ability to do righteousness, but he will lean towards evil unless somehow he's inspired the opposite direction. Yes, Susan.
How are we going to know what is good and righteous if we don't have evil in the world?
So therefore, you're saying he should have had the child because teach people.
I'm not talking about him specifically. I'm saying, how are we supposed to know what good is if we don't have evil and what is awful in the world? How can we recognize what is right if we don't have the worst?
So is that like a reason why evil is?
Evil. It's just it's a concept that I've always had that
I don't think God would do that to us.
I don't like justifying evil, but I need to know they're all degrees of evilness.
Right. So we're going to learn about Menashe later, but obviously it was evil enough that Chizkiah felt that it would not be appropriate for him to have such a child. He felt that this was serious enough that this would be bringing evil to the world versus good. Now, about your logic about, well, if we don't have evil, we won't know what's good. I don't really agree with that. I think that people can figure out what's good. We don't need evil at all. We can know what's good. We can imagine. We have enough in our past of, history of the Jewish people, that we don't need any more of that. Yes, Isaac.
I was just going to say, no matter what, you're only taking too narrow a perspective. You're looking to the future of one generation. It's going to be a bad guy, it's going to be terrible evil, therefore I don't know what his child is going to be like or how it's going to influence other ways. That's what makes it Hashem's business. And we have no business getting involved in that. That's all.
Okay, that's a very good point, Isaac. So Isaac is saying that there's also the fact that there might be future good. that will come out of this evil person.
Undoubtedly, there will be, because it comes from Hashem. I just don't see it right now.
So, so that's a very interesting point to make. But besides that, it's in a certain sense, you know, what you're getting at is that maybe the logic is wrong. That even the logic that, well, I don't want to bring evil into the world is not exactly correct, because it might be good. But let's say you knew that it's going to only be evil, and there is no future, and would you still, would this then have been the wrong thing to do or the right thing to do? And it seems bahade kivshe derachman alamalach, with these hidden matters of Hashem, what are you mixing in? It's, in a certain sense, it's not your department to make these logical discussions. So I'm not disagreeing. I think you got a good point there, Isaac, but I do think that there's taking it a step further.
It's not your business. You're right. It's not your business.
Not really your business, and therefore you shouldn't be calling the shots there. If Hashem says that you have a mitzvah to get married, you should get married. And so and that's the way the Gemara explains this. And it comes and there's a whole continuation to that story where Chizkiah says to Yeshayahu, why is this happening? And Yeshayahu tells him why, and he explains to Yeshayahu his reason. And Hashem answers back, you have none of your business. You still should have gotten married. And Hezekiah tells Isaiah, he says, if so, give me your daughter in marriage, because maybe your merit, together with the merit of my of me or my family, it will maybe have an influence on the child. So maybe you should give me your daughter to get married to. So Isaiah says it's too late. He says, sorry, but you're going to be dying soon. You're on your deathbed, and it's basically over. And Hezekiah tells Isaiah, he says, well, finish up your prophecy and leave, because I have a teaching, a tradition that we never give up hope. And even until the last moment, you could always beg Hashem for mercy and annul a decree. And so that is Hezekiah's claim to Isaiah. Isaiah finishes his prophecy and leaves. And while he's in the middle of leaving, he's by the Chotzer Hatichona, the middle courtyard. He gets a vision from Hashem, a word from Hashem, a prophecy, to go back and tell Chizkiah that he's going to live another 15 years. So this is the understanding based on the Gemara, and it has to do with not getting married to have children. But there is an understanding here that Chizkiah was punished not just because he didn't want to get married, and there's a mitzvah to get married and have children, but Chizkiah was punished that he was going to destroy the Davidic dynasty. So it adds another dimension to this sin, meaning the sin was not only about not getting married, but it was really in connection with the fact that he's destroying the remnants of the Davidic dynasty. He's gonna ruin it. And now I don't know why aren't there any other relatives around? But some of the relatives had killed. We did go through the stories of the queen Asalia, who killed out everyone, and maybe another king had killed out all the relatives. So it sounds like, according to this understanding, like there wasn't any other descendants the Davidic dynasty. Now, and the other point that has to be mentioned is that Chizkiah, this story is right around the same time as the war with Sancherib. Now, if this happened afterwards, there's a discussion in the commentaries. Did this actually happen when he's dealing with that war? Is this exactly, a few days before the miracle, the great miracle that we read about in chapter 19, where Sancherib's entire army of 185,000, not just soldiers, but these were commanders of 2,000 soldiers each, his army of 370 million people, where they all miraculously died, and in the night of Pesach. So if you learn that this happened, that this story of Chizkiyahu getting sick afterwards, if you learn that's the context of this story, so it leads us to another midrashic understanding of why Chizkiyahu got sick. And that is because Chizkiyahu did not thank Hashem and sing praises of Hashem for the miracle of winning this war against Sancherib. This was a huge, huge feat. It was incredible. They were busy bringing their Korban Pesachs. They were busy learning Torah before. They didn't even plant their fields. They were so busy learning Torah, and then they brought the Korban Pesach. And while they're bringing the Korban Pesach, and miracles are happening for them by Hashem, and so afterwards they got this great miracle, and all the enemy soldiers died. So this was incredible, and yet Chizkiyahu did not sing praises to Hashem, and so because of that, he is being punished. Now, the commentaries, at least one of the commentaries, makes gives an understanding of what was going on in Chizkiyahu's mind. Why didn't he make songs of praise to Hashem after this great win, after this tremendous victory and miracle? Why didn't he make special songs to Hashem, praises to Hashem? And the answer is,
at least half hollow.
Right. And the answer is that this is given by the Sfas Emes, that that Chizkiyahu, everything that happened to him, even nature to him, was a great miracle. He would see an apple growing on an apple tree. To him, that was already a praise to Hashem. And the fact that Hashem made a miracle to kill 185,000 enemy soldiers was no greater than the miracle of life, of any simple thing in life. We know that these are all miracles from Hashem. So to him, it wasn't unique because he had such appreciation to every individual miracle that Hashem made. Even nature, he saw straight through the nature. Just to keep a job that you went to college for, that is already a miracle. And for him, and even though everyone else looks at it, oh, I have job security, Chizkiyahu said, no, that's a miracle. Your job security is really a miracle. And so that's how he saw everything. The problem, so what was so wrong with Chizkiyahu? That's a beautiful way of perspective on life, that every little thing, the fact that we have electricity, that we have so many amenities, where the way we live and the way we have things, everything's so convenient, and the miracles, the way Hashem runs the world on a daily basis, all the nature of the world, just to be able to see trees growing and houses that stand, and and we have air conditioning. I mean, everything that we have is such a great, being able to fly in an airplane so fast and reach the destination so fast and convenient. So the every little thing was already a great miracle. So what was wrong with Chizkiyahu's way of thinking? And the answer is that you on your level, that's great. But everyone else, they need you to make a big deal out of this miracle. Because for them, they don't see the world as great miracles. And if you bring out this miracle to them, it'll be a great sanctification of Hashem's name. It'll show the greatness of Hashem, and it'll elevate the nation to a higher level. So for you, you might not need that. And you sort of like have appreciation for everything in general, and for you, it's like nothing unique. But for the people, for them, you should have made a great song of praise and lifted their level of connection to Hashem. So that's an understanding of this. That again, that's based on this story of Chizkiah getting sick was right after the miracle of chapter 19, which was where the won against the Sancheirav, the Ashur nation. He won them. Now,
Rabbi, I just want to mention that I think that it's almost like Moshe holding up the staff to give emunah to the kahal when he was told to raise his arm with the staff in order so that they would have faith, they would have emunah.
Right.
Where does it say he was told? Where was he told to raise his arm?
I don't know if he means he was told. Okay, Moshe, the problem is your sound.
I'm sorry, Yeshua was told him to do it. That he should raise the staff in order to
I don't think so. It doesn't say anything like that. It only says that when he did, he was not told to raise his hand.
Okay, Moshe, we're going to mute you.
I'm sorry?
We need to mute the noise. Okay, so I'm just going to, 1 second. Why is the noise still on? Okay, it's good now. So basically, not to get into this discussion of did Moshe get a command about raising his hands or not, but which is a interesting question because we assume Moshe didn't do anything that Hashem didn't tell him. On the other hand, you don't see in the Torah that Hashem tells him to raise his hands. So that's an interesting discussion, which maybe we could look into another time. But it's a nice connection that it's all about faith in Hashem and strengthening people's faith. So yeah, you could see a little connection there. Okay, now so I mentioned that this third interpretation, again, we've got the first interpretation about the fact that he didn't get married, the second interpretation that he was destroying the house of David, and the third interpretation is that he did not make songs of praise to Hashem. Now, this third interpretation, just 1 second, is based on the fact that this story of him getting sick, deathly ill, was after the war with Ashur. But there is another way of understanding the historical background over here is that this happened at the same time as the war. So he was sick during the war. During the time that Ashur is about to siege, is coming back to siege, to conquer Yerushalayim. So this happened 3 days before Sancheiriv's final invasion, his invasion, before he started sieging them. Now then he left, now he's coming back. So this is 3 days before that. And so according to that interpretation, you have to learn, according to that understanding, you would need to explain it with the first two interpretations, not the last one, because he didn't yet have the miracle that we should blame him for not making songs of praise. Right? You can't really say that. Now, there is a little source, in verse 6, it says, 1 second. It says in verse 6, Umikaf melech Ashur atzilcha, I will save you from the hand of Ashur. So it sounds like this story of Chizkiah being sick is still before Ashur has been conquered, before the Assyrians have been defeated and conquered, and so that would be a reason to learn that we're talking about before the war actually happened. The other way of learning has to explain that verse 6 to mean that you will never have to worry about the Assyrians. I am promising you 15 more years, and I will save you if Assyria ever tries to start up again. And that would be the other way of learning it, meaning you won, you already conquered them, and their main battle was already, but you're nervous that they're gonna start up again and develop an army that you don't have to worry about. So that would be the other way of learning it. David, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Mayamla brings from the Barbanel. So he says that no one had ever rebuked Hezekiah. So he continued a long time in his error. He was not only the king, but he was one of the wisest and most pious men of his generation. The only one who was his equal was the prophet Isaiah. And he would have them, except each one they hadn't seen each other in many years, because each one felt that it was the other person's position to come to him. As Hezekiah said, if the prophet has to visit the king, as Elijah visited Ahav, and Isaiah said the king has to go to the prophet, as Jehoram went to Elisha. And that's why Hashem made a compromise. He caused Hezekiah to become ill so that Isaiah would visit him in fulfillment of the mitzvah of visiting the sick. And then everything would be able to take place, and he would be able to deliver his rebuke and his prophecy.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to mention that after, but that's good. You said it. So basically, the Gemara, I believe it's a Gemara that explains this, or it's a Medrash, but I think it's Gemara in Brachos, where each one, or maybe the Gemara talks about two other people in Brachos. There's another story very similar to this, where who was it? It was one of the Shoftim.
Some of these are Barbanel, then it says Brachos 10a.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It might be there. It might be there. But the Gemara talks about one of the Shoftim. What was his name? His name was who slaughtered his own daughter, or at least according to some interpretations. It slipped my mind now, but one of the Shoftim refused to annul his vow. Yiftach, thank you. Yiftach refused to annul his vow because he didn't want to go to Pinchas and lower himself. And Pinchas said, "Why should I go to Yiftach and annul his vow?" And they both ended up getting punished. Here we have a very similar story, and I'm not sure if the Gemara compares the two, but it's a very similar thing, that Yeshaya didn't feel like going to the king Chizkiah, and Chizkiah didn't feel like going to Yeshaya. Chizkiah says, "I'm the king, he should come to me," and he brought a source. And the same thing is that the Yeshaya, the prophet, says, "I'm the man of Hashem. I'm the prophet of Hashem. I shouldn't, let the king come to me." And he also had a source in the past of one of the kings coming to the prophet. And so neither of them really, were right, because they both should have seemingly humbled themselves. Although it is a very interesting question, because it does say that a king is not even allowed to forgo his honor. But on the other hand, maybe this is the honor of Hashem, when he honors a prophet, maybe you could say it's different because this is honoring Hashem. It's not his honor. It's honoring Hashem, going to a prophet. So anyway, it seems to be a very similar situation here. But ultimately Hashem had Yeshaya come to the king. So I was wondering, after I was thinking about that story, does this mean that concludes the argument that maybe the prophet is the one who's supposed to go to the king? Like, does that sort of give like an answer to the question? In other words, the Gemara doesn't clearly say, or the Medrash, whoever this is.
Well, the king is rewarded with 15 more years and bracha v'hatzlacha and everything else, and that's the way he walks away from the story.
No. But the question is the initial discussion that we're having here is who was supposed to go to the other one. Was Yeshaya supposed to go? So what did Hashem do? He made Chizkiah sick, deathly ill, and he made Yeshaya go to him. So my question is, does that sort of give an endorsement? Does that give a verdict to our question? Like, does that mean that more Yeshaya was more guilty than Chizkiah? That Yeshaya really should have been the one? Is that correct conclusion, or is this just the way it ended up happening? But anyway, however you want to learn, that's the origin of this. Thank you, David, for mentioning it. Now, so we were seeing over here that Yeshaya was about to leave, and he felt that it's over, and Chizkiah davened to Hashem, and he cried out, "Bechi gadol," intense weeping. It says that was verse 3, with intense weeping, and it worked. Hashem had mercy on him. Now, what's interesting is he uses the words that, "Remember that I walked before you with a faithful and pure heart, complete heart. And I did good what was good in your eyes." Now, why was he saying this? So the understanding seems to be that he's not trying to, show off, so to speak. But he's more trying to say that this is the reason why I didn't get married. It was for you. Even my sin, it was really maybe wrong, but it was with you in mind. It was all about you. I was all about doing good in your eyes. I was trying to do the right thing. Okay, I was wrong, but this is this seems to be the understanding of why he's saying that. In other words, why is he emphasizing it? What do you mean I did good? He's not arguing with Hashem. I don't deserve this, but he's really trying to bring out to Hashem that, I really had you in mind for this, even with this sin. And I pray that I don't get punished so severely. Now, he says that it's the emes uvelev shalem. I was faithful and pure, complete heart, and it says v'hatoiv be'einecha asisi. I did what's good in your eyes. So the Gemara has two interpretations of what that refers to. One is that he davened always without interrupting. He would always mention about Hashem's redemption right before he did his Shemona Esrei. So when it says, "I did good in your eyes," the Gemara says that means he was soimech geula l'tfilah. Never interrupted mentioning Hashem's redemption and then praying. Never interrupted the two. He always connected the two. And that was considered doing what's good in your eyes. Another thing that the Gemara says that it refers to is that he hid the Sefer Refuos. And this is something we had mentioned earlier from a Mishnah that talks about the 6 things that Chizkiah did that were revolutionary and or unique. And 3 of them the rabbis agreed with, 3 of them they didn't. One of them was that he hid the Sefer Refuos, the book of healing, or the book of remedies, the book of medicines. And it basically was a book that had all these methods of healing. And people used to almost worship it because they trusted in it, and they would forget about davening to Hashem, and they wouldn't put their trust. They believed in it. It was becoming problematic, and he saw that people were relying too much on this book, and they would forget about Hashem, and Hashem is the real healer. And so he hid the book, and this way people would daven to Hashem instead of worshiping the book. So when he's telling Hashem, I did good, what's good in your eyes, he's saying, Hashem, please, in the merit of hiding the book, I did what was good in your eyes, therefore, please heal me. And my thought on that is that he probably had a lot of backlash from hiding that book. Like, there were many people who were very sick, and he refused to reveal it. I'm just, it sounds like he's using that as a means to, say, like, I did such good things in your eyes, like I did it for you. It wasn't easy, so to speak. Anyway, just a thought that could have been a quite hard dealing with his big high officials, explaining to them and dealing with.
Go daven.
What is that?
Go daven.
Right. Go daven. Right, telling people to daven. Now, the thing is that when we take medicine, there is a siman in Shulchan Aruch that talks about that you're supposed to say Yehi Ratzoin. You're taking medicine, but you're supposed to say, my medicine is not what's healing me. May it be your will that before Hashem, Sheyia Esek Zel Lila Rafua Kiroife Chinam Ata. You have to say this prayer that that whenever you do any matter of healing, any type of healing activity, you say that this should be for a healing, that it should be you, because you are the one who's healing me, because you are a right vechinam. In other words, we connect the medicine to Hashem. That's really Hashem who's doing the healing.
There's
got the noise. 1 second, we gotta get that noise out. Okay. Now,
there's an abbreviated form. Say Yehi Ratzon Sheyia L'Rafua.
Yes, yeah. Correct. Okay, so here we are in chapter 20, where we've been talking, reviewing a little over here with verse 4, and then he tells him that, I've heard your prayer and your tears, seen your tears, and I'm healing you. On the third day, you will go up to the temple of Hashem. And if this is talking about the story in chapter 19, meaning that this all happened at the same time, so what it's referring to is you will be going soon. You'll be able to get out of your deathbed, and you'll be able to walk around, and you will be going on the third day to daven, to be able to daven for the war. You're going to be going to the temple of Hashem, as we saw in chapter 19 that he did. And then in verse 6, it's mentioned about he's going to add 15 years to his life, and I will rescue you in this city from the grip of the king of Ashur, and I will protect this city for my sake and for the sake of my servant David. Now, so he mentions that it's for my sake and for the sake of my servant David. It doesn't mention for your sake. Like, even though Chizkiah, he mentions about Hatoiv Beinecha Sisi, Levav Shalem, mentions all the good things that he did. Hashem says, no. I'm doing it for the sake of my servant David, for my sake and the sake of my servant David. Now, the Gemara says that you see from here that when you want your tefillah, your prayer, to be answered, you should always rely on. You shouldn't rely on your own merits. You should rely on your ancestors, and based on your own merits, this was like a rebuke for Chizkiah, that he was sort of like relying on his own merits, and Hashem is rebuking him by saying, "I'm going to do it for my sake," meaning for Hashem's sake, and for David, his great grandfather. Now, there is a discussion, a philosophical discussion about what does this mean that he got added on 15 years to his life. It's a Gemara. The Gemara talks about this. Does that mean that he was not meant to live more than anymore, and now Hashem adds on years? Or does this mean that he was initially supposed to live these 15 years, and Hashem was taking them away, and now Hashem said, no, you know what, I'm going to give them back. I'm not going to take them away. So in other words, does Hashem make such miracles where he adds on new years to someone's life? Or does he, if he had taken away years, he might add them, he might move them, give them back. So this is the so that's a debate in the Gemara. It's an argument in the Gemara. Now, the thing is, why did he get 15 years? So if you think about it, it's very similar to the story with Abraham. Abraham lived 175 years because Hashem was doing him a favor that he should pass away before he sees his son, his grandson, before Abraham sees his grandson Esav doing evil. It would have been very painful for Abraham to see that. And so Hashem had him pass away before. Same thing is here. Menashe is going to be born soon. And Hashem wants Chizkiah, who's so righteous, even though we mentioned that he was on his deathbed for some, of course, Hashem is judging him on a much, expecting a lot more from him than a regular person. But Chizkiah is very righteous, and Hashem doesn't want him to suffer from seeing his son do evil. And so he's giving him 15 years and not more. Now, it says that he should take a cake of figs and place it on the shchin, on the boil. So it sounds like the boil is connected to this sickness, and he's going to be healed. And it was healed. He did it, and it was healed. And Rashi mentions over here that this is like a miracle inside a miracle, because normally figs, when it touches your skin gets some type of it makes it worse. It makes it some I don't know how to say it, like some type of discoloration and I don't know what it does. In fact, I've never tried putting fig on my skin, but somehow fig would be the opposite of healing. And here, not only it didn't hurt him, but it actually healed him. Now, right after this, he asks for a sign. The reason why he asks for a sign, I mean, it sounds like a little chutzpah, like you don't trust, first of all, you just saw that your boil went away. So what does this mean that he's asking for a sign? So on a simple level, what he's thinking is that Yeshaya is just trying to calm him down, and it's really not necessarily 100% correct or true what he's told him, but he's just feels bad that he scared him, and instead he's maybe just comforting him and telling him, don't worry, you're going to be fine. Now, so that was that's on a very simple level, but you still have to understand, I mean, he saw that the boil was healed, so why does he want a sign? So on that, the commentary here, one of the commentaries mentions, about Doc mentions that he thought that, this relief was like a temporary type of, like, the symptom went away, but that doesn't mean the body is healed. It's just like you put on some anti-itch cream, so you don't feel it. But did that actually heal the infection? Did there's a much bigger sickness going on, and you took some Motrin or Tylenol, so your fever went down. It doesn't mean that you're healed. It's just getting rid of the symptoms. So that's what he understood, that maybe this is not really real, this healing. And so that was what he was asking, and Hashem and Yeshaya made this great miracle that is going to make the clock, the sun, is going to go back 10 degrees, which the Rashi understands to mean 10 hours. Now, this leads us into the next story over here. So there's something like this clock on the wall, that the way you would figure it out what time it is based on how the sun, the shade from the sun, how the sun would hit it, the fact that what part of it is shaded, what part is sun, you'd be able to see what time of the day it is. And what Hashem did was he moved the sun backwards. Now, at the end of this, verse 11, it mentions that where did he get this sundial from, sun clock? He got it from his father, the wicked Achaz. Why does it tell us that? It mentions that he got it from his father, and what it's really saying is that when Achaz died, Hashem did not want there to be any eulogies for him. So what did he do? Hashem made the day set very fast, so they quickly had to bury him. Oh, the sun is setting. Okay, let's just do the burial. So they had no choice but to rush it through. And this is after Achaz's bones were pulled on the with ropes on the ground as part of an atonement that Chizkiah decided was a good way of showing the community, his subjects, that his father was evil, and he deserved to have this punishment of after he died, that it would be like a disgrace to his body, and this would show the people how terrible idol worship was, and so on. And after that, even at the burial, it was done real fast because the sun had set. So what Hashem did now for Chizkiah is he now gave back the 10 hours. The only thing is, people can make the connection between the two. So so for them, this was like a major event. You have to, and the reason why it was so major is because of the next story. The next story is about the king of Babylon. And there's a discussion if he was also the new king of Ashur, or was he a king of Babylon, who Babylon was a vassal state to Ashur. Two opinions, but however you learn, the king of Babylon was blown away at this miracle. He sent letters and a gift to Chizkiah. He heard that he was ill, and the understanding, the real story behind the story is based on the Gemara, that this king, his name was Berodach Baladan. And this king was someone who used to take a nap every day at noon, take a long nap at noon. Now, what he expected was that his high-ranking officers would wake him up before it got dark, and what happened was, next thing he knows, he took this nap, and the next thing he knows is the sun is rising, because Hashem made 10 hours earlier, or it's the middle of the night and he's or it's right by dawn, because Hashem pushed the hours back. So what happened is, so he wakes up and it's just dawn. He says, "What, you people let me sleep till the morning? Why didn't you wake me?" He was fed up with. He was furious. He was, and so they had to explain to him, no, something strange happened today. The sun never set. The sun did not set. This was a very strange thing, and we were trying to figure out what it is. And then they found out about this story of Chizkiah, and so that's what got the king of Bavel to go and find out who is this king this King Chizkiah who got the sun, what's the story there? They got the sun to go back 10 hours. Like, how do you, who is this? I want to meet this miracle worker. So this led us. So this could have been a tremendous Kiddush Hashem if it would have spelled itself out that way. But it didn't, unfortunately. It was supposed to. In other words, Chizkiah was meant, at least according to one of the understandings here, was that Chizkiah was meant to use this as an opportunity to spread the word that Hashem loves the Jewish people, and he put the sun back 10 hours for us, and so on. And it would have been a great miracle that should have been publicized in his entire kingdom and to all the other kings. And this would have brought great honor to Hashem. And according to one of the commentaries, this would have been the final concept of Mashiach, that Chizkiah would then have made it to be the Mashiach. This is the story that says that he didn't make it the Mashiach. We see a few things that he did wrong in his life, which of course there's no tzaddik that doesn't do something that's not perfect. Everyone, even a tzaddik, in tzaddik bards asher yaseh tov lo yechta, that they won't be missing in something. But what was it that Chizkiah did that was missing, that he didn't do appropriately? Was this? According to one commentary, was this story, and this is what caused him not to be the Mashiach. Now we got to go through the story and see it a little more in detail. Now,
Rabbi,
so yeah, yes.
One commentary, it's his kuni.
Yeah, there is a commentary, Chizkuni.
So it says, Hashem prepared the sun for this miracle from the day that it was created. As the Torah says concerning the creation of the sun and other heavenly bodies, they will be for signs. Hashem used them as signs for Yoshua and for Chizkiah.
Could you just say that again? I'm sorry, I was just wasn't concentrating. Say that one more time, please.
Hashem prepared the sun for this miracle from the day that it was created, as the Torah says in Bereshis, concerning the creation of the sun and the other heavenly bodies, they will be for signs. Hashem used them as signs for Yehoshua and for Chizkiah.
Right. Okay, interesting. So this is one of those. This is one of the few places where we find that the sun never set, so to speak, or we got extra hours. But I think it says about Moshe Rabbeinu as well. But it's interesting it doesn't mention that. But I think there is a place where Moshe also had the sun. The sun stayed.
Maybe when he held up his arms, his hands.
I don't know. Have to remember.
I was winning and losing, not the sun.
Yeah, no, I don't know if that was it. But in any event, so we have here the king of Bavel in verse 12. And I'm going to just go through the next few verses here. At that time, Barodach Baladan, the son, interesting, it says Ben Baladan, the son of Baladan, the king of Babylonia, sent letters and a gift to Chizkiah, for he had heard that Chizkiah was ill. Chizkiah listened to them and showed them his whole treasure house, the silver, the gold, the spices. So he's showing everything to these servants of this king of Babel. Now, the king himself didn't come. It was only his, he sent his entourage there, sent his emissaries there, and so he showed them the silver, the gold, the spices, the fine oil, the warehouse, and everything that was found in his treasuries. There was nothing that Chizkiah didn't show them in his palace and in all his realm. Now, what Rashi adds in here is very shocking. Rashi says that he actually showed him the ark, the tablets, and the Sefer Torah. Very shocking, because you would think Chizkiah is not going to open up the Holy of Holies to show him the ark. So this is quite surprising. At least Rashi mentions this, that there was nothing that he withheld, meaning that he even showed them that. Now,
to what end?
Say that again.
To what end?
To what end?
What end was he showing him all these treasures?
Well, he was so it seems that he was somewhat flattered by the gift and by the note, the letter, that the king of Babel was so appreciative of him, and and he sort of got flattered and sort of like got lost in his flattery, and he was like rejoicing in it. Now, there is a very similar verse to verse 13, where instead of it saying Vayishma Alehem Chizkiyo, that Chizkiah listened to them and he showed them all of his stuff, but it's in the verse in Divrei Hayamim, and in Yeshaya, where it mentions this story in Yeshaya, it uses the word Vayismach, and he rejoiced. That he rejoiced, and meaning that, like, along what I'm just telling you now, to answer your question, Isaac, is really this point, that the other pasuk sort of like sheds light on this verse, that he is rejoicing. He's so flattered that he's like rejoicing. He's in seventh heaven. He's so impressed. He's so flattered and moved by this request that they came, and so he's showing off. And what he really should have been showing off was Hashem's greatness and Hashem's miracles, and not this. Now, there is also, when it says he showed the whole house of his treasure house, there is an understanding here that it means he had his wife, the queen, serving the guests, and so. And this is based on the Gemara. The Gemara really mentions this idea that Ishtay Haisa Mashkelahem, the wife, gave them to drink, which was not exactly the most proper tznius thing for her to do. Now, the pasuk continues and says that Isaiah the prophet came and to King Chizkiah and said to him, "What did these men say, and from where did they come to you?" Now that's an interesting question. Chizkiah said they came from a faraway land, from Bavel, from Babylonia. So this discussion of the prophet is really like a loaded question, and he's really asking Chizkiah, what are you really thinking about the fact that they came to you? Well, like, what's the meaning of it? And Chizkiah doesn't catch on. He's like showing that he's proud. They saw, he says that they saw everything in my house. There was nothing I didn't show them, my treasuries. he's like still like very proud of this whole thing, and that was so wrong because he should have been, understanding that there, this is an opportunity for him to really to emphasize Hashem, not himself. But we're gonna stop here. Sei gesund, everyone. Have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
The story's so exciting. I can't wait.
Can't go further. Too much. We'll have to put it on hold. Keep you in suspense.